A trembling text lands on Jake's phone. He broke Mom's arm. Please help. Wrong number, but the biker doesn't hesitate. He roars toward the address, heart pounding. Inside the darkened house, he finds a little girl clutching her unconscious mother. Blood stains the carpet. Footsteps echo upstairs. Jake's fists clench as a shadow descends the staircase. A man he recognizes. The same face from 15 years ago. The night everything was taken from him. Their eyes lock. You. The man whispers, stumbling back. And that's when Jake hears it. Sirens. But they're not coming to help. Welcome to Hell's Angels family. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button right now because this story is about to take you on a ride you won't forget. To my day one subscribers, my real ones who've been here from the start, I love y'all. Thank you for showing up every single time. Before we jump in, let me pray over you real quick. God, I'm asking you right now to bless every single person watching this. Cover them with your protection. Bless their family, their health, their finances. Give them peace in the storm and strength when they feel weak. Let miracles happen in their life today, in Jesus' name. Amen. Now let's get into it. Because what you're about to hear isn't just a story about a wrong number text. It's a story about what happens when a desperate little girl accidentally reaches the one man who would move heaven and earth to save her, and uncovers a 12-year-old secret that a corrupt detective has been killing to protect. The phone buzzed against the cold metal workbench at exactly 11:47 p.m., cutting through the rumble of classic rock spilling from Reaper's garage speakers. He'd been wrestling with a stubborn carburetor on a 1967 Harley-Davidson for the past 3 hours, his hands black with grease, his back aching from hunching over chrome and steel. The text message lit up his screen like a beacon in the darkness. He broke Mom's arm. Please help. 2847, Oak Ridge Lane. Reaper wiped his hands on an oil-stained rag, his weathered face illuminated by the phone's glow. Wrong number. Had to be. Nobody texted him anymore. Not since he'd cut ties with everyone after his release from prison 3 years ago. He'd learned the hard way that trust was a luxury he couldn't afford. But something about those words made his chest constrict. The misspelling of mom instead of mom suggested a child's panic typing. A child was reaching out in desperation, their fingers probably trembling as they typed to what they thought was a lifeline. Most people would have deleted it. Would have convinced themselves it wasn't their problem. Would have told themselves someone else would help. Reaper had been that person once. The kind who walked past suffering because getting involved meant risking everything he'd rebuilt. But tonight, staring at those 8 desperate words, he couldn't be that person anymore. His thumbs moved across the screen. I'm on my way. The ride from his garage in West Atlanta to the Decatur suburbs took 20 minutes of weaving through empty streets, his Harley's engine roaring like a caged animal finally set free. The cool night air whipped against his leather jacket as he pushed the bike harder than he should have, running 2 red lights at deserted intersections. Reaper had always trusted his instincts. They'd kept him alive through 2 tours in Afghanistan, 5 years riding with motorcycle clubs across the country, and 3 brutal years in a Georgia state prison for a crime he didn't commit. Right now, those instincts screamed that something was very wrong at 2847 Oak Ridge Lane. The neighborhood was the kind of middle-class suburban sprawl that had seen better days. Modest homes with chain-link fences and aging Toyota sedans in the driveways. A few houses still had Christmas lights up from last year, half of them burned out. The house materialized out of the darkness. 2,847 painted in fading numbers on the mailbox. A 2-story structure with peeling white paint and a sagging front porch that had probably been beautiful 20 years ago. A pink bicycle lay abandoned on the front lawn, one while still spinning lazily in the night breeze like someone had just dropped it in a hurry. The porch light flickered erratically, casting unstable shadows across the overgrown yard. Reaper killed his engine and dismounted, his leather boots crunching on the gravel driveway. The neighborhood was cemetery quiet except for a dog barking several houses down. That's when he heard it. A woman's muffled sobbing from inside the house, a man's voice rising in anger, and then the unmistakable sound of something heavy crashing against a wall. Glass shattered. A child screamed. Reaper's combat training kicked in instantly. He approached the front door in 3 long strides, his hand automatically reaching for the Glock he no longer carried. Ex-cons weren't allowed firearms, even when rushing into danger. The door was solid wood, but the frame looked cheap. He didn't bother knocking or announcing himself. The front door gave way easily under his shoulder, the lock splintering from the frame with a crack that echoed through the quiet street. He burst into a living room frozen in a tableau of violence and fear that would be burned into his memory forever. The space was small and cluttered, family photos on the walls, a worn couch pushed against the window, toys scattered across the floor. A little girl with tangled blonde hair crouched beside her mother on the hardwood floor, her small hands pressed against the woman's shoulder. She couldn't have been more than 7 years old, wearing pink pajamas with cartoon characters on them. Her face was streaked with tears and snot, her eyes wide with the kind of terror no child should ever know. The mother, mid-30s, with auburn hair matted with sweat and sticking to her forehead, clutched her left arm against her body at an angle that made Reaper's stomach turn. The arm was definitely broken, bent in a way that defied natural anatomy. Her face was a mask of pain and terror, with the beginnings of a bruise blooming across her right cheekbone. A trickle of blood ran from her split lip, but it was the man standing over them that made Reaper's entire world tilt sideways, and his heart stopped beating for a full second. James Thornton stood there in dark jeans and a fitted black shirt, looking exactly as he had 15 years ago, minus a few gray hairs at his temples and some lines around his eyes. The same sharp jawline that women had always found attractive. The same athletic build from their military days. The same cold blue eyes that could flip from friendly to predatory in a heartbeat. Eyes Reaper had once trusted more than his own. The same man who had been Reaper's partner in the Army Rangers, his brother-in-arms, his most trusted friend, the guy who'd pulled him out of an ambush in Kandahar and saved his life. Until the night James had framed him for drug trafficking, planted evidence in his apartment, testified against him in court, and stolen everything Reaper had built. His security business, his reputation, and 3 years of his life behind bars. Reaper. James's voice carried genuine shock, his face draining of color like someone had pulled a plug. His mouth actually fell open. What the hell are you doing here? The little girl looked up at Reaper with eyes the color of storm clouds before a tornado, tears streaming down her flushed cheeks. Her whole body was trembling. You came, she whispered, her voice hoarse from crying. I texted Daddy's old number from Mummy's phone, but you came anyway. Reaper's mind raced, trying to process the impossibility of this moment. Of all the houses in metropolitan Atlanta, of all the wrong numbers a desperate child could text, she'd somehow reached him. And of all the men who could be hurting this woman and child, it was James Thornton. The universe had a sick sense of humor. His boots carried him forward instinctively, his body moving on autopilot as he put himself between James and the terrified child. At 6'3" and 220 pounds of muscle earned from years of manual labor, Reaper still cut an imposing figure. Step back, he growled, his voice carrying the weight of 15 years of betrayal and rage and all the words he'd never gotten to say in that courtroom. James raised his hands in mock surrender, but something was wrong. His initial shock, which had seemed genuine, had melted into something else, something that looked disturbingly like satisfaction. A smile played at the corners of his mouth. This is a private domestic matter, Reaper. You need to leave before this gets ugly for you. Sarah here just had a little accident. Tripped over some toys in the dark. You know how clumsy women can be. Liar. The little girl shrieked, her voice breaking. You pushed her down the stairs. You said if she tried to leave you again, you'd break both her arms. That's when Reaper heard them, sirens in the distance, growing steadily louder with each passing second. His eyes darted around the room, processing details his brain had missed in the initial shock. The coffee table had been cleared of everything except one item, a clear plastic evidence bag sitting in plain view, filled with white pills that caught the lamplight. Oxycodone, if he had to guess. The bag had an evidence tag attached to it, partially visible. Recognition slammed into him like a freight train. He'd seen the evidence bag before, or one exactly like it. The night James had planted drugs in his apartment and called the cops. The night that had destroyed his life. "You son of a—" Reaper started forward, his fists clenching, but the woman on the floor grabbed his ankle with her good hand. Her grip was surprisingly strong despite her obvious pain. "Don't," she gasped, her voice strained and desperate. "He's a detective now. Decatur Police Department. He planned this. All of it. The text wasn't random. He made me give Lily your number. He's been watching you for months." The words hit Reaper like physical blows. James's smile widened, confirming everything, his white teeth gleaming in the lamplight. "You always were predictable, brother. So noble. So eager to play hero." He gestured casually to the evidence bag like he was showing off a new car. "I've been tracking your phone for 6 months through some very helpful contacts at the NSA. Old military buddies, you know how it is. When Sarah here started getting mouthy about leaving me, threatening to go to internal affairs about some alleged misconduct," he made air quotes with his fingers, "I realized I could kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Get rid of a troublesome girlfriend who asks too many questions, and put you right back where you belong. Behind bars. If you're watching this right now, you need to stay until the end." What Reaper discovers about his past will change everything, but most viewers leave before they find out the truth. Don't be one of them. The sirens were close now, maybe 2 blocks away. James pulled out his phone with the casual confidence of a man who held all the cards, his thumb hovering over the screen. "Here's how this plays out, old friend. Officers arrive to find you, a convicted felon with a history of drug charges, breaking into a detective's girlfriend's house. Breaking and entering, possession with intent to distribute based on that evidence bag you touched when you shoved the door open. Oh yes, I coated the door handle with adhesive to lift your prints. Sarah here is too injured and traumatized to give a coherent statement tonight. She'll be pumped full of pain medication at the hospital." And little Lily, he looked down at the girl with theatrical sympathy that made Reaper's skin crawl. "Well, 7-year-olds make terrible witnesses, don't they? Everyone knows they confuse their nightmares with reality. They mix up TV shows with real life. The courts barely take them seriously." The woman, Sarah, struggled to sit up despite her broken arm hanging uselessly, her face contorted with agony. Sweat beaded on her forehead. "Reaper," she said, and something in the way she said his name, with recognition, with familiarity, made him look at her closely for the first time. Really look at her. There was knowledge in her brown eyes that went deeper than this moment. She knew who he was, had known before tonight. "You need to know," she started, but James took a threatening step toward her, his hand moving to his belt where Reaper now noticed a service weapon holstered. "Shut your mouth, Sarah. I warned you what would happen if you told him." But Sarah's next words came out in a desperate rush, riding on nothing but pure courage. "Emma was my best friend. Your daughter Emma. From Georgia State University." The room tilted. The floor seemed to drop out from under Reaper's feet. Emma. His daughter who disappeared 12 years ago without a single trace. His baby girl who'd been 22 years old, fresh out of college, working her first job at a marketing firm in downtown Atlanta. The daughter he'd torn the country apart looking for, spending every penny of his savings on private investigators who found nothing. The daughter whose missing person case had been handled by the Decatur Police Department and gone absolutely nowhere despite his desperate pleas for them to keep investigating. The daughter whose face he still saw every time he closed his eyes. Reaper's eyes snapped to the little girl's face, really seeing her for the first time. The shape of her eyes. Almond-shaped with slightly upturned corners. The curve of her chin, pointed and delicate. The way her blonde hair caught the light with hints of red, just like Emma's had. The storm-gray eyes that were looking up at him with desperate hope. Recognition slammed into him like a physical blow that knocked the air from his lungs. This child looked exactly like Emma had at that age. The resemblance was unmistakable once you saw it. James watched the realization dawn on Reaper's face and laughed. A cold, satisfied sound that echoed off the walls. "Took you long enough to put it together. I was wondering if you'd figure it out before the cops arrived. Sarah's your daughter's mother?" "Not quite. But that makes little Lily your granddaughter, doesn't it?" He paused, savoring Reaper's shock like it was fine wine. Emma's been looking for you for 12 years, Reaper. You spent all that time and money searching for her. Wonder why you never found her. Wonder why every lead went cold. Wonder why the police investigation just stopped. The police cars screeched to a halt outside, red and blue lights painting the walls in chaotic, nauseating patterns. Car doors slammed in quick succession. Footsteps pounded up the walkway. Radio chatter crackled in the night air. And James leaned in close enough that Reaper could smell his cologne. The same brand he'd worn 15 years ago. Close enough that only Reaper could hear his next words. She's still alive. I've made sure of it. Kept her alive all these years. But if you want to see Emma again, if you want to know where I've been keeping your daughter, you'll need to survive what happens in the next 60 seconds. So here's my advice. Don't resist arrest. Play nice. Do your time. And maybe, just maybe, I'll tell you where she is. The front door burst open for the second time that night, and 4 uniformed officers rushed in with Glock 22s drawn, shouting commands that sounded like they were underwater to Reaper's ringing ears. Hands up. Get on the ground. Now. Do it now. Reaper's hands went up automatically, his mind still reeling from James's revelation, unable to process the possibility that Emma was alive, that she'd been alive this whole time, that his daughter had been somewhere in this city for 12 years while he'd mourned her as dead. As cold steel handcuffs locked around his wrists, tight enough to bite into his skin, he watched James's performance. James immediately dropped to his knees beside Sarah and Lily, his face transformed into a mask of concern. His voice cracked with false emotion as he addressed the officers. Thank God you're here. I came to check on my girlfriend and found this guy attacking her. Sarah, baby, it's okay. You're safe now. Lily, sweetheart, come here. But Lily recoiled from James's outstretched hand like he was a snake. She scrambled backward across the floor, leaving a smear of her mother's blood, and pressed herself against the wall. No, he's lying. He hurt Mummy. The biker man came to help us. One of the officers, a young guy who couldn't have been more than 25, holstered his weapon and knelt beside Sarah. Ma'am, can you tell me what happened here? Sarah's eyes met Reaper's for one long moment. He could see the calculation happening behind her pain-glazed eyes, the impossible choice she was being forced to make. If she told the truth, James would kill her. Maybe not tonight, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually. If she lied, an innocent man would go back to prison. The weight of that decision was written across her pale face. I fell, she whispered finally, and Reaper watched something die in her eyes as she said it. Down the stairs. It was an accident. That's not true. Lily screamed, her small voice filled with betrayal. Mummy, tell them. Tell them what he did. An officer gently guided the crying child away from the scene. Come on, honey. Let's let the paramedics help your mom, okay? As Reaper was hauled to his feet and marched toward the door, the evidence bag was placed carefully in a larger evidence container by one of the officers. James stood and approached Reaper, his hand on his service weapon, playing his role perfectly. I knew you'd screw up eventually, he said quietly, just loud enough for the other officers to hear. Guys like you always do. Ex-cons can't help themselves. And then, even quieter, meant only for Reaper's ears. Your daughter screams your name sometimes. In her sleep. After all these years, she still thinks you're coming to save her. Isn't that pathetic? Reaper lunged forward, every muscle in his body straining against the handcuffs and the officers holding him. Where is she? Where's Emma? I'll kill you. I swear to God. Resisting arrest, James announced calmly, and another officer grabbed Reaper's arm, twisting it painfully behind his back. Add that to the charges. As they dragged him past the coffee table, Reaper caught a glimpse of the family photos on the wall that he'd missed before. Sarah with Lily at various ages. Lily is a baby. Lily is a toddler. And there, in a frame partially hidden behind others, a photo of 2 young women with their arms around each other's shoulders, laughing at something off camera. One of them was Sarah, younger, with shorter hair. The other was Emma. His Emma, wearing the Georgia State hoodie he'd bought her for her 18th birthday. His knees nearly buckled. They shoved him into the back of a police cruiser, the door slamming shut with the finality of a coffin lid. Through the window, he watched paramedics rush into the house. Watch James follow them, playing the concerned boyfriend. Watch neighbors emerge from their homes in bathrobes and pajamas, drawn by the commotion. And then Lily appeared in the doorway, held back by a female officer. The little girl's storm-gray eyes, Emma's eyes, found Reaper through the cruiser window. Even from this distance, even through the chaos, their gazes locked. And she mouthed two words that would haunt him, her small lips moving deliberately so he couldn't miss them. Find her. Right now, thousands of people are watching Reaper's life fall apart. But only those who stay will discover the shocking truth about Emma. If you leave now, you'll never know what really happened that night 12 years ago. As the cruiser pulled away from 2847 Oak Ridge Lane, red and blue lights still painting the night in frantic colors, Reaper pressed his forehead against the cold window glass. His reflection stared back at him. A broken man who'd just discovered his daughter might be alive and his granddaughter was trapped in hell. And the only person who knew where Emma was hidden was the same man who'd already destroyed his life once before. The game had just begun, and Reaper was already in checkmate. The interrogation room at Decatur Police Department smelled like stale coffee and desperation. Reaper had been sitting in the metal chair for 4 hours, his wrists still bearing red marks from the handcuffs. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting harsh shadows across the scarred table between him and Detective Marcus Hayes, one of the few people from his past who'd actually believed in his innocence. Marcus had shown up an hour ago, flashing his FBI credentials and demanding access to the suspect. Now he sat across from Reaper, his dark eyes filled with barely contained fury as he reviewed the arrest report. "This is a setup," Marcus said quietly, sliding the paperwork across the table. "James Thornton's fingerprints are all over this operation. Literally and figuratively." Reaper's voice came out hoarse from hours of silence. "He is Emma, my daughter. She's alive, Marcus. After 12 years, she's alive, and that bastard knows where she is." Marcus leaned back, processing this information with the trained stillness of a federal agent who'd heard every kind of horror story. "Start from the beginning. Tell me everything about tonight." As Reaper recounted the events, the text message, the broken mother, the granddaughter he never knew existed, Marcus took notes in a small leather journal. When Reaper mentioned Sarah's name, Marcus's pen stopped moving. "Sarah Mitchell?" Marcus asked, his expression shifting. "Auburn hair, about 5'6". Works as a paralegal downtown? I don't know her last name or what she does. But yeah, auburn hair. You know her." Marcus pulled out his phone and scrolled through files until he found what he was looking for. He turned the screen toward Reaper, displaying a photograph from a missing persons database. Sarah Mitchell filed a report 8 years ago about her roommate's disappearance. The roommate's name was Emma Peterson. The case was assigned to the Decatur Police Department and closed after 6 months due to lack of evidence. The room tilted. "Emma's my daughter. She used her mother's maiden name after the divorce." "Then Sarah's been sitting on information about your daughter's disappearance for 12 years, Marcus said grimly. "The question is why? What made her stay silent for 8 years before even filing a report?" A uniformed officer knocked on the door, interrupting them. "Detective Hayes? The woman from the incident, Sarah Mitchell, is out of surgery. She's asking to speak with the suspect. Says it's urgent." Marcus stood, his jaw tight. "We're going to the hospital. Now." Grady Memorial Hospital's 4th floor was quiet at 3 in the morning, the hallways populated only by exhausted nurses and the occasional doctor making rounds. Sarah lay in a private room, her left arm in a cast that extended from her shoulder to her fingertips. Her face was pale against the white pillows, but her eyes were sharp and alert when Reaper entered, flanked by Marcus and 2 uniformed officers. "Leave us," Sarah said, her voice stronger than it had any right to be. "I need to speak to him alone." "That's not protocol," one officer began, but Marcus held up a hand. 5 minutes. We'll be right outside." He looked pointedly at Reaper. "Don't do anything stupid." When the door closed, Sarah struggled to sit up straighter, wincing with pain. "They gave me enough morphine to knock out a horse, so I need to say this while I still can. Emma Peterson was my roommate at Georgia State University. We were best friends from freshman year. Inseparable." If you want to know what really happened to Emma, hit that like button now. Reaper moved closer to the bed, his hands clenching into fists. James said he's kept her alive. Where is she, Sarah? Where's my daughter? I don't know the exact location, Sarah whispered, tears streaming down her face. But I know she's alive because James has been using her to control me for the past 2 years. He shows me photos on his phone, dated photos with current newspapers in the frame. Emma looks. Her voice broke. She looks terrible, thin, broken, but alive. Why didn't you go to the police? To the FBI? Sarah laughed bitterly. James is the police. He transferred to Decatur PD specifically to handle Emma's missing persons case. He buried every lead, destroyed every piece of evidence, intimidated every witness. And 2 years ago, he found me, started dating me, said if I ever told anyone about Emma, he'd kill her. Said he had officers watching her location 24/7, and one phone call from him would end her life. Reaper's mind raced through the timeline. But you filed a missing persons report 8 years ago, for years after she disappeared. Because I was young and stupid and thought I could outsmart him, Sarah admitted. I filed anonymously, through a friend in another state. James traced it back to me within a week. That's when he showed me the first photo of Emma, chained to a wall in some concrete room. That's when he told me exactly what he'd do to her if I ever tried again. And Lily. Reaper forced himself to ask the question that had been burning in his mind since he'd looked into those storm-gray eyes. Is she really my granddaughter? Sarah's expression softened with something like relief. Yes, Emma was 3 months pregnant when she disappeared. She just found out. Was planning to tell you that weekend. James knew somehow. I think he'd been stalking her even then, obsessed with her since they'd met at some police community event. He took her before she could tell anyone. The words hit Reaper like bullets. Emma had been pregnant, had carried a child for 6 months in captivity, had given birth somewhere in James's prison. How did you get Lily? James brought her to me when she was 6 months old, Sarah said, her voice hollow with remembered horror. Said Emma was becoming difficult after the birth, and the baby's crying was attracting too much attention wherever he was keeping them. He said I could raise Lily as my own, or he could drop her at a fire station and let the system swallow her up. He'd make sure Emma never knew what happened to her daughter. Subscribe right now. You won't believe what Reaper does next. So you took her, Reaper said quietly. Not an accusation. A statement of terrible understanding. I took her because at least this way, Lily had someone who loved her. Someone who knew her real mother's name. Someone who could tell her the truth one day. Sarah's eyes burned with fierce protectiveness. And because I knew that if Emma survived, if she ever escaped, she'd come looking for her daughter. I wanted to be there when that happened. Does James know you've been planning this? That you gave Lily my number? Sarah shook her head weakly. He thinks he's so smart, tracking your phone, setting up his perfect trap. But he underestimated me. I've been documenting everything for 2 years, photographs of my injuries, recordings of his threats, copies of the evidence he's destroyed. I have proof that he's been running a human trafficking network through the police department. Reaper straightened. What? Emma wasn't his only victim, Sarah said. She was just his first. His obsession. Over the past 12 years, James has been part of an operation that moves women across state lines. Young women who fit a certain profile, blonde, early 20s, college-educated. Women whose disappearances won't generate too much attention. He keeps them for a while, then sells them to buyers across the country. But Emma. She paused, gathering strength. Emma he kept for himself. His private collection. His prize. The door burst open and Marcus entered, his face grim. We need to move. Now. James just filed a complaint claiming you threatened him tonight. There's a warrant being drawn up for additional charges. We have maybe 20 minutes before they transfer you to county lockup. Sarah grabbed Reaper's hand with surprising strength. James owns a property. It's listed under his mother's maiden name, Carver. Helen Carver. Somewhere in South Atlanta, near the old industrial district by the railroad tracks. That's where he keeps them. I heard him on the phone once, giving directions to someone. He mentioned the Carver warehouse and street numbers in the 2800 block. How many women are there? Marcus demanded, his phone already out, texting rapidly. I don't know. Emma and at least 2 others based on things James has said. Maybe more. Sarah's eyes were starting to glaze from the morphine. The security deposit box. First National Bank in Chicago. Box 447. The key is taped under Lily's dresser drawer in her bedroom. Second drawer from the top. That's where I've hidden everything. All the evidence, all the recordings, photographs of James with the other girls. Hit that subscribe button before this story takes its darkest turn. Her grip on Reaper's hand tightened one last time. James has been planning something big. I heard him tell another cop that Saturday night would change everything. That's tomorrow night. He's moving the girls. If you don't find them before then. She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. Marcus was already pulling Reaper toward the door. I've got FBI tactical teams mobilizing. We're executing a raid on every property connected to Helen Carver in the South Atlanta Industrial Zone. But there's a problem. What problem? James put out an APB on you 20 minutes ago. Every cop in the city is looking for you. He's claiming you escaped custody during transport. Marcus's expression was stone, which means we need to make that true. Because if they find you before we find Emma, she's dead. They emerged into the hallway where the 2 uniformed officers lay slumped against the wall, unconscious but breathing. Marcus had moved faster than Reaper had realized. You drugged cops? Reaper asked incredulously. They'll wake up in an hour with headaches and hazy memories about the suspect overpowering them, Marcus said, handing Reaper a set of car keys. There's a gray Honda in the parking garage, level 3, space 47. GPS is programmed with an address, a safe house in College Park. Wait there for my call. Do not go anywhere near James. Do not try to be a hero. Let us handle this. That's my daughter. And she's been alive for 12 years because James has kept her that way. Marcus interrupted. If you go after him now, you'll get her killed. Let me do my job. Reaper took the keys, knowing he was about to lie. How long? Give me 12 hours to get the teams in position. We'll hit the warehouse tomorrow at dawn. Marcus gripped his shoulder. I know you, brother. I know what you're thinking. Don't do it. For Emma's sake, don't do it. But as Reaper slipped out the hospital's service entrance into the pre-dawn darkness, he was already planning. Because 12 hours was an eternity when every minute could be Emma's last. And somewhere in South Atlanta, in a warehouse that smelled like rust and despair, his daughter was waiting for a rescue that was 12 years overdue. The clock was ticking, and Reaper had never been good at following orders, especially when family was on the line. The safe house in College Park was a forgettable ranch-style home on a street full of identical forgettable houses. Reaper pulled the gray Honda into the driveway at 4:30 in the morning, killed the engine, and sat in the darkness trying to silence the war raging in his mind. Marcus had given him 12 hours. Emma had already waited 12 years. The math didn't add up to patience. He was reaching for the door handle when his phone buzzed with an incoming text from an unknown number. The message contained a single photograph. No words, no context. Just an image that stopped his heart. Emma sat on a bare concrete floor, her back against a cinder block wall. She wore a stained gray t-shirt and jeans that hung loose on a frame that had once been athletic but was now skeletal. Her blonde hair, once thick and lustrous, hung in matted tangles around a face that was simultaneously familiar and foreign. But her eyes, those storm gray eyes that Lily had inherited, stared directly at the camera with a defiance that 12 years of captivity hadn't extinguished. She held today's newspaper. The headline was clearly visible. Federal investigation targets Atlanta PD. The phone rang immediately. Reaper answered without breathing. Hello, old friend. James's voice was smooth, unhurried, like they were chatting about sports scores. I assume you're at Marcus's safe house by now. He's so predictable. Did you really think drugging 2 patrol officers and escaping would work? I've been 3 steps ahead of you since the moment you walked into that house. What do you want? Reaper's voice came out steady despite the rage boiling in his chest. A conversation. Face to face. Just you and me, like the old days. James paused, and Reaper heard him moving, footsteps echoing in what sounded like a large empty space. There's a diner on Moreland Avenue called Sal's. 24 hours, terrible coffee, but it has excellent sightlines. Be there in 1 hour. Come alone. Come unarmed. And Reaper? If I see FBI, if I see your biker friends, if I see anyone who looks remotely like backup, I make one phone call and Emma's handler puts a bullet in her head. How do I know she's even alive? That photo could be old. Check your phone. Another image arrived. This one was a video, 10 seconds long. Emma stood in the same concrete room, still holding the newspaper. She turned slowly in a circle, showing the empty space around her, then looked directly at the camera. Her lips moved, forming words that the video had no audio to capture, but Reaper could read them clearly. Don't come. It's a trap. The video ended. 1 hour, James repeated. Oh, and Reaper? Bring your appetite. We have so much to discuss. The line went dead. Reaper sat motionless for 30 seconds, his training warring with his instincts. Every tactical bone in his body screamed that this was suicide. James wouldn't negotiate, wouldn't trade, wouldn't let Emma go even if Reaper surrendered himself. This was about dominance, about proving once again that James held all the power. But that video, Emma's face, the way she'd mouthed those words with such desperate intensity. He dialed Marcus. Please tell me you're at the safe house. Marcus answered immediately. James just contacted me. Wants a meeting at Sal's Diner on Moreland in 1 hour. Like this video right now, Reaper's about to make a choice that changes everything. The silence on the other end stretched for 5 full seconds. It's a trap. I know. Then you're not going. I am. Reaper started the engine. But I need you to do something for me first. Sarah mentioned a safety deposit box in Chicago. First National Bank, box 447. The key is hidden under Lily's dresser drawer. I need you to get that evidence. Reaper, listen to me. I'm also texting you an address. 2847 Oak Ridge Lane. That's where Lily is, probably with Child Protective Services by now. Get her somewhere safe. Somewhere James can't reach her. Because if this goes wrong, she's his leverage. Marcus's frustration crackled through the phone. If you walk into that diner, you're not walking out. James will kill you the moment he has what he wants. Then make sure you find that warehouse before he gets the chance. Reaper ended the call before Marcus could argue further. The drive to Sal's Diner took 15 minutes through empty pre-dawn streets. Atlanta was still sleeping, the city holding its breath in that quiet hour before sunrise when anything felt possible. Reaper parked 2 blocks away and approached on foot, scanning for James's backup, for unmarked vehicles, for the trap within the trap. Sal's Diner was a relic from the 1950s, all chrome and red vinyl booths. Through the large windows, Reaper could see maybe 6 customers scattered throughout. A tired waitress refilling coffee, 2 construction workers eating breakfast before their shift, an elderly man reading a newspaper in the corner booth, and James, sitting at a table in the center of the room where he could see all entrances. Reaper pushed through the door, triggering a bell that announced his arrival. Every eye in the diner turned toward him briefly before returning to their meals. He slid into the booth across from James, who looked disgustingly fresh for 5 in the morning. Clean-shaven, pressed shirt, not a hair out of place. You actually came, James said, genuine surprise coloring his voice. I thought for sure Marcus would talk sense into you. Where is she? Right to business. No pleasantries. No, how have you been, James? How's the corrupt cop life treating you? James signaled the waitress, who brought 2 cups of coffee without being asked. She's safe. For now. Comfortable. Even, by her standards. I've been keeping her well-fed lately. Building her strength up for the trip. What trip? James added cream to his coffee with deliberate slowness. I have a buyer in Mexico City. Very wealthy man. Very specific tastes. He's been asking about Emma for years. I've shown him photographs, told him about her education, her background. He's offering $2 million. That's what your daughter is worth on the open market, Reaper. $2 million for a well-bred American girl with enough spirit left to make things interesting. Subscribe now before you see what Reaper does with his bare hands. Reaper's hand tightened around his coffee cup hard enough that the ceramic threatened to crack. You're selling her. Tomorrow night. She'll be on a private plane to Monterey by midnight. And there's not a damn thing you can do about it. James leaned forward, his blue eyes glittering with malicious satisfaction. But here's where it gets interesting. I'm prepared to offer you a deal. What kind of deal? You take the fall for tonight. Confess to breaking into Sarah's house, to assaulting her, to planting the drugs yourself as part of some misguided revenge scheme against me. You do this publicly. Full confession, courthouse steps, cameras rolling. You make me look like the hero detective who stopped a dangerous ex-con. And in return, James pulled out his phone and showed Reaper a GPS coordinate. That's where Emma is. Right now, the warehouse address. You get Marcus and his FBI friends there within the next 6 hours. They'll find her. I'll make sure my security is conveniently absent. Clean rescue. Emma goes free. And you disappear with $2 million, Reaper said flatly. Exactly. I get my money, my reputation intact, and a new life in South America. You get your daughter back. Everyone wins. James took a sip of coffee. Except you go back to prison. But what's another 10 years when you've already done 3? And this time, you'll actually deserve it. The waitress approached to refill their cups. James smiled at her warmly, the picture of a friendly off-duty cop. The moment she left, his expression went cold again. Why would I believe you'd let Emma go? Reaper asked. The moment I confess, you could kill her, and I'd have no leverage. Because I'm tired, brother. Something flickered in James's expression, not quite regret, but exhaustion. 12 years of maintaining this operation, of keeping Emma hidden, of managing all these moving parts. I want out. I want to disappear. And frankly, Emma's become more trouble than she's worth. She's attempted suicide 3 times. Refuses to eat. Screams at night. The buyer is getting impatient, but if I sell damaged goods, he'll come after me. Better to let her go and start fresh somewhere else. Reaper studied James's face, looking for the lie, the angle, the betrayal waiting beneath the surface. You expect me to trust you? I expect you to trust that I'm a businessman. Killing Emma at this point serves no purpose. Letting her go, getting you off my back, and disappearing with enough money to live like a king in Rio? That's good business. James slid a burner phone across the table. You have until noon to decide. Call this number when you're ready to make the deal. The press conference happens at 3 p.m. Emma gets rescued at 6. You're in county lockup by 7. And if I refuse? James's smile could have frozen blood. Then Emma's on that plane tomorrow night, and you'll spend the rest of your life wondering what kind of hell she's living in Mexico City. Wondering if she's thinking about you. Wondering if she blames you for not saving her when you had the chance. Hit that like button. What happens next will shock you. Reaper pocketed the burner phone and stood, his coffee untouched. I need to think about it. You have 6 hours. After that, the offer expires. James remained seated, completely at ease. Oh, and Reaper? I know you're planning something. I know you think you're going to find that warehouse on your own. Play hero, save the day without making any deals. But I've moved her 3 times in the last week. That GPS coordinate will only be accurate if we have a deal. Otherwise, by the time you figure out where she is, she'll be on that plane to Mexico. Reaper left without responding, the bell chiming mockingly behind him. The sunrise was painting the eastern sky in shades of pink and gold, a beautiful morning that felt like an insult. Somewhere in this city, Emma was chained in a concrete room, counting down her final hours of American soil, and Reaper had to choose between his freedom and his daughter's life. He was halfway to the Honda when his phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Got the key. Flying to Chicago on Bureau Jet. ETA 3 hours. Do not do anything stupid. Reaper looked at the burner phone in his other hand. 6 hours to decide. 6 hours to find another way. 6 hours to somehow outsmart a man who'd been 3 steps ahead of him for 12 years. But as he sat in the car, engine idling, watching the sun rise over Atlanta, a terrible certainty settled over him. There was no other way. No clever plan. No tactical advantage. Just a simple equation that came down to one question. How much was his daughter's life worth? The answer, he realized, was everything. Reaper picked up the burner phone and dialed James's number. The phone rang 3 times before James answered, his voice thick with satisfaction. I knew you'd see reason. Courthouse steps. 3 p.m. I'll confess to everything. Reaper's words tasted like ash. But I want proof Emma's at that warehouse first. Live video feed. I see her alive, standing, able to walk, then I make my statement. Always negotiating. That's what I loved about you, brother. James paused, and Reaper heard typing in the background. Check your phone in 60 seconds. You'll get your proof. But Reaper? If you tip off Marcus, if you try anything clever, the deal's off and Emma boards that plane tonight instead of tomorrow. The line went dead. Reaper sat in the Honda, watching the seconds tick by on the dashboard clock. 58, 59, 60. The video arrived. This time it was live. He could tell by the timestamp in the corner and the way the camera moved, someone holding a phone. The concrete room came into focus, larger than he'd imagined from the photos. Dim fluorescent lights revealed 3 women huddled against the far wall, all of them blonde, all of them thin and hollow-eyed. But Emma stood apart from the others, her back straight despite everything, her chin lifted in defiance. She looked directly at the camera, and Reaper's breath caught. Even broken, even after 12 years in hell, she had their family's stubbornness written in every line of her body. The camera panned right, revealing something that made Reaper's blood freeze. Lily sat on a metal folding chair in the corner, her small hands bound with zip ties, her mouth covered with duct tape. Her storm gray eyes were wide with terror. Surprise! James's voice came through the phone's speaker. Did you really think I'd leave my best leverage with Child Protective Services? I collected her an hour ago. Had one of my officers sign her out for a family emergency. Now here's the new deal. You confess, or I hurt your granddaughter while your daughter watches. Your choice, hero. The video ended. Reaper's vision tunneled to a single point of white-hot rage. Every tactical thought, every calculated strategy evaporated, leaving only one truth. James had made his final mistake. He dialed Marcus. Change of plans. I need the Iron Wolves and I need them now. Like this video right now. You won't believe how this ends. The old warehouse sat in the heart of South Atlanta's industrial district, surrounded by abandoned buildings and empty lots where weeds pushed through cracked concrete. Reaper crouched behind a rusted dumpster 2 blocks away, surveying the target through binoculars as the midday sun beat down mercilessly. The building was exactly where James's GPS coordinates had indicated, a 3-story structure with broken windows and faded lettering that once read, Carver Manufacturing. 2 vehicles were parked outside, James's black Dodge Charger and a white panel van with tinted windows. I count 4 guards, came a gravelly voice through Reaper's earpiece. That was Tank, his oldest friend from the Iron Wolves, positioned on a rooftop 3 buildings east. 2 on the ground floor, 2 on the second level. All armed. All cops based on the way they move. Marcus and his FBI team are 20 minutes out, added another voice. Razor, covering the rear entrance. You sure you want to do this before they arrive? Reaper checked his watch. 2:45 p.m. In 15 minutes, he was supposed to be at the courthouse confessing to crimes he didn't commit. James would be expecting him, would be watching the news, waiting for Reaper to break on camera. Instead, Reaper was about to break down James's door. We go now, he said quietly. Emma and Lily don't have 20 minutes. 6 Iron Wolves materialized from various positions, converging on the warehouse like shadows given form. These were men Reaper had ridden with for years, men who'd visited him in prison, men who'd never doubted his innocence. They moved with military precision, veterans all, carrying weapons that definitely weren't legal but were absolutely necessary. The front entrance was a rolling metal door, padlocked from outside. Razor made quick work of it with bolt cutters while Tank covered the approach. The door screeched upward, the sound impossibly loud in the quiet afternoon. They entered a cavernous space filled with abandoned machinery and old shipping crates. The first guard appeared from behind a forklift, his hand moving toward his holstered weapon. Tank was faster. A single punch to the jaw and the man crumpled. Cop down, ground floor. Tank reported calmly, zip-tying the unconscious officer. The second guard got his gun halfway out before 3 bikers tackled him simultaneously. They moved like a well-oiled machine, years of riding together translated into perfect synchronization. Reaper took point climbing the metal staircase to the second floor, his boots barely making sound on the rusted steps. The guard there was young, maybe 25, and the terror in his eyes when 6 large bikers appeared suggested James hadn't told him what he was really guarding. Down. Now. Reaper's voice carried the weight of absolute certainty. The guard dropped his weapon and raised his hands. Subscribe right now. This final confrontation will leave you speechless. The top floor was different. Cleaner. The concrete had been painted, the windows covered with blackout curtains. A heavy steel door blocked the end of the hallway, the kind of door that said "keep out" in every language. It was also wide open. James stood in the doorway, his service weapon pointed directly at Reaper's chest. Behind him, the concrete room was visible. Emma still standing, Lily still bound to the chair, 2 other women huddled in the corner. And Sarah, her cast visible, standing between James and the captives with her good arm raised defensively. Sarah? Reaper's mind struggled to process her presence. How? She's been working with me, James said casually. The whole time. Every word she told you? Every tear? Performance of a lifetime, wasn't it, sweetheart? But Sarah's eyes met Reaper's, and in them he saw something James had missed. She was positioned wrong for an ally. Her body language screamed threat assessment, not partnership. I got tired of waiting for you boys to figure it out, Sarah said, her voice steady despite the fear flickering across her face. So I had myself released from the hospital and followed James here. Been waiting for you to show up. James's smile faltered slightly. Sarah, get away from them. No. Sarah moved closer to Emma instead, putting herself between James and his captives. I'm done being afraid of you. Done letting you control everything. Reaper's here. The FBI is coming. It's over, James. The FBI is 20 minutes away, James countered, his gun now tracking between Reaper and Sarah. I can kill everyone in this room and be in the wind before they arrive. Starting with, he swung the gun toward Lily. 3 things happened simultaneously. Sarah lunged at James despite her broken arm, screaming and clawing at his face. Emma, moving faster than seemed possible for someone so malnourished, grabbed a piece of metal pipe from the floor and swung it at James's gun hand. And Reaper charged forward, covering the 15 feet between them in 3 explosive strides. The gun went off. Once. Twice. Someone screamed. Reaper crashed into James with the force of 12 years of rage compressed into 220 pounds of pure violence. They hit the concrete floor hard, Reaper's fists already swinging, connecting with James's face again and again. All the betrayal, all the stolen years, all the suffering this man had caused, every bit of it channeled into his knuckles. Reaper, stop. Tank's voice cut through his fury. He's out. You're killing him. Reaper's fist paused mid-swing, hovering over James's bloody, unconscious face. His chest heaved with ragged breaths as reality crashed back. He looked up to see Tank and Razor pulling him backward, see the Iron Wolves securing the room, see Marcus and a dozen FBI agents flooding through the door. But none of that mattered, because Emma was standing 5 feet away, tears streaming down her face, her whole body trembling. And Lily, someone had cut her free, was pressed against Emma's legs, both of them staring at him with identical storm gray eyes. Dad? Emma's voice cracked on the single word, 12 years of pain and hope and disbelief compressed into 1 syllable. Hit that subscribe button. This family story isn't over yet. Reaper moved toward her slowly, afraid sudden movement would shatter the moment like glass. Emma, baby girl, I'm here. I'm so sorry I didn't find you sooner. She collapsed into his arms, and Reaper caught her, holding his daughter for the first time in 12 years. She was too thin, too fragile, shaking with sobs that came from somewhere deep and broken. But she was alive. She was real. She was home. Lily wrapped her small arms around both of them, and Reaper felt something in his chest crack open, not breaking, but opening, making room for this impossible joy. Is she really your daughter? Lily asked in a tiny voice. My real mummy? Yes, sweetheart, Emma whispered, pulling back just enough to look at her daughter's face. I'm your real mummy. And I've been trying to get back to you every single day. Sarah approached slowly, her expression a mixture of relief and guilt. I'm sorry, she said to all of them, for not being strong enough to fight him sooner. For all the years, You kept my daughter alive, Emma interrupted, reaching out with one hand to grip Sarah's good arm. You raised her with love when I couldn't. You risked everything to get us here. Don't apologize for that. Marcus was suddenly at Reaper's elbow, his phone pressed to his ear. The evidence from the safety deposit box just arrived via secure upload. We have everything: recordings, photographs, financial records. James's entire network is burning down right now. 15 officers across 3 precincts are being arrested as we speak. And the charges against me? Reaper asked. Dropped. All of them. The DA is calling it a gross miscarriage of justice and promising a full investigation. Marcus's expression softened. You're free, brother. Actually free this time. James groaned from where he lay on the floor, 2 agents cuffing his hands behind his back. His face was a mess of blood and swelling, his nose clearly broken. He looked up at Reaper with hatred burning in his blue eyes. You think you've won? James spat blood. You think this is over? I have friends in every prison in Georgia. You'll never be safe. Emma will never be safe. You'll spend the rest of your life in a federal supermax, Marcus interrupted coldly. Human trafficking, kidnapping, racketeering, corruption, attempted murder of a federal witness. You're looking at life without parole, and that's if you're lucky enough to make it to trial before one of your victims' families finds you. They dragged James away, still cursing, still threatening. Reaper watched him go and felt nothing except relief that this chapter was finally closing. The other 2 captive women were being led out by female FBI agents, wrapped in blankets, their eyes adjusting to freedom after years in darkness. Marcus promised Reaper he'd make sure they got every resource available: therapy, protection, new identities if needed. As sunset painted the Atlanta skyline in shades of gold and crimson, Reaper sat on the warehouse steps with Emma on one side and Lily on the other. Sarah had been taken to give her statement to the FBI, but she'd hugged them all before leaving, promising to visit tomorrow. What happens now? Emma asked quietly. She'd barely let go of Lily's hand since they'd been freed, as if afraid the little girl would vanish if she looked away. Now, Reaper put his arms around both of them. Now we go home. We start healing. We learn how to be a family again. It won't be easy. There's a lot of trauma to work through, a lot of time to make up for. I don't even know where to start, Emma admitted. 12 years. Lily's whole life. I missed everything. Then we start with today, Lily said with the simple wisdom of a 7-year-old. Sarah always said every day is a new beginning. So today, we begin again. Marcus appeared in the doorway, backlit by the dying sun. We need statements from all of you, but it can wait until tomorrow. For now, there's a hotel suite downtown, FBI protection, medical teams standing by whenever you're ready. Reaper stood, helping Emma up, lifting Lily into his arms. The little girl rested her head on his shoulder, exhausted from terror and relief. Let's go home, he said, as they walked toward the waiting vehicles. Emma leaning on him for support, Lily half asleep in his arms, surrounded by the iron wolves who'd risked everything to help. Reaper looked back once at the warehouse. 12 years of darkness. 12 years of pain. 12 years of evil hiding behind a badge. But darkness, he'd learned, couldn't survive the light. And family, real family, the kind that fought for each other, that never gave up hope, that showed up when a wrong number became the right call. Family was the brightest light of all. Emma squeezed his hand. Lily mumbled something about being hungry. And somewhere ahead, Atlanta spread out before them, full of possibility and second chances. The nightmare was over. The healing could begin. And this time, Reaper wouldn't let anyone tear his family apart again.